It's my pleasure as Chair of Indigo to open this session and warmly welcome all of you, but also introduce our guests. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the country of First Nations peoples because we're coming from different parts of Australia, then we're meeting on different lands. I'm coming to you from the land of the Jarinja people on the south coast of New South Wales, and we pay our respects to the traditional owners, elders past, present and emerging. And from Indigo's perspective, I just want to say we stand in solidarity with First Nations people in their struggle for truth, healing and justice. And hopefully constitutional recognition in the near future. I also pay my respects and our respects to any First Nations people who are with us tonight on the call. Thanks to everyone for being with us. My first privilege is to really warmly welcome Guna and Semmalar, who are leaders in our partner communities. We'll hear much more about that. I want to sort of briefly introduce them and then just say a little bit about how we see this evening working. Firstly, to Semmalar, if I can. Semmalar is our liaison officer with PEAB, which is the Program for Education and Awareness Building, a local partnership in Madurantakam, which is outside of Chennai in Tamil Nadu. Semmalar's been in that role for over 10 years. In her professional capacity, she's a social worker and an academic. She, I think personally, with others, but with others in the communities, in the villages, if you like, has really held this partnership together for a very long time. So thank you so much for that, Semmalar. And it's great to be in contact with you again, having visited you in 2018. And now to Guna. Very warm welcome also, Guna. It's lovely to see you and to be with you again. Guna was the co-founder with her sister Grace of Mahalir Sakthi in Madurai, also in Tamil Nadu. And Mahalir Sakthi works with communities in the slums of Madurai. They have a sort of thriving community centre, and they do a lot of outreach work in those communities. A common focus to both partnerships is the strong work with young people and education being obviously a pathway to better futures. So Guna, you've both, Semmalar and Guna, have played important roles in the Dalit rights movement more broadly, and I'll let them speak to that a little bit in a moment. But it's fantastic. I just think it's brilliant to be able to have this opportunity to be face-to-face with you, even if it's virtual, and to introduce you and to allow you to be heard directly by some of the people who are really precious to us in Indigo. So as I said, I was really honoured in 2018 to visit with our partners, and I have fond memories of that time. And personally, I'm really looking forward to hearing about the developments both in your communities, but also in the Dalit movement more generally. Before I introduce and hand to Susan, I just want to say, for the purposes of, we've got a fairly brief time together. We want to encourage the use of chat. If you have, you want to either introduce yourself, say hello, or ask questions that Susan, as the sort of leader of the conversation, might pick up and put directly to Semmalar and Guna. So I just encourage you not to keep your mics off, but to use the chat function. There will be some time towards the end for direct questions, and that's when we'll look to you to put your hands up. For me, it's lovely to see so many of you. I think I know many people, but not everyone. So thanks very much for joining. I know many of you will also know Susan Engel, Dr. Susan Engel from Wollongong Uni. Susan, I think, has been with Indigo since almost the very beginning, if I can say that. She's worn many hats. She's been on our board. She's been a research advisor. She's encouraged interns to come and be part of Indigo. And now she is the voluntary, I say that with some joy, but also recognition, voluntary partnership coordinator with our 2 partners in Tamil Nadu. So it's my pleasure to hand over to you at this point, Susan, unless I've forgotten to do something which I need to be reminded about. So warm welcome to everyone. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much, Lila, and great to see you and everybody. And let me just, I think, just saying a few words about the partnership, because Semmalar made the point before. I know we've got mostly our wonderful Indigo supporters here, and many of you might know a lot of the context of our India partnerships, but I'll just say a very few brief words and then ask Guna and Semmalar to speak more to the partnership. So Lila introduced the 2 partnerships, and just in terms of the context, I mean, Semmalar will explain some of this much better than I can, but they both, you know, in the context of India, the caste system is still very prevalent, and both our projects work with mostly the Dalits, who used to be called untouchables, but also other scheduled castes and tribes, and with the PEAB, with the Mahalir Sakthi project, also with the Muslim community, who has been increasingly oppressed or historically oppressed as well in the Indian context. And towards the end, I think I'm going to ask Guna and Semmalar to speak a little bit more to the current and in fact worsening political climate that's seen the discrimination against those communities grow. So that's the big context. But the other part of the context we thought we'd start with tonight was a bit about how COVID has impacted both India and the 2 organisations we support. Guna, could I start with you by hearing your thoughts about and story about how COVID impacted both the community and the Mahalir Sakthi project?
This Mahalir Sakthi project,
welcome, Guna.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have posed a few questions. Based on that, you are asking, and what am I to explain now? Semmalar was saying that she will say the preview of the context. Let us say preview of the context, then we will.
Okay. Yep. Semmalar, would you jump in a bit more on?
Yes. Reply the questions. Is that fine?
That is wonderful. Thank you, Semmalar.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Guna. Yep. Semmalar.
Yes, as Susan was telling, like, no, we've been working in these communities for, I mean, with the support of Indigo, like more than 10 years, where Madhurandagam, and then like later Mahalir Sakthi joined with it. As Susan was pointing out, like, no, this impact of COVID in the community, even to understand the impact of COVID in the community, like as, I mean, this whole context of we raising supporting the community program, especially like, you know, this particular marginalized communities where we are working, both the projects are working, are called as untouchable communities. So politically, we call it as Dalits, and then constitutionally, we call it as scheduled caste, and some pockets, scheduled tribes also. Tribes is like Adivasis community. So here, these communities are excluded communities for by a social system, which has been prevalent here 3,000 plus years. So it's a system which is there in the prevalence for 3,000 years. So the impact of such stigmatized social hierarchical system is having a larger impact in the communities where we are working. It is impacting in terms of livelihood. It is impacting in terms of access to education and also access to resources. So the main aim for us working in these communities is to break the chain of poverty, which is being influenced by the social stratification. So Predominantly where we run our educational programs, we cater to the children or students who are from these untouchable communities. So this is the context. Especially Susan asked about the impact of COVID in the community. As we all know, it is a pandemic. Globally, we all had an impact. And you could imagine, like, if people who could afford things, and then since we are working with marginalized communities, it has been a great challenge for them. The first primary challenge is the livelihood challenge. So the way we are working among children, and then their parents' livelihood was greatly affected, because all these parents who are attending our tuition centers or educational centers are working as daily wage laborers in the village or in the suburbs, or they are traveling to city from some 50-60 kilometers they travel, and then it's a daily wage employment they were engaged. So lockdown had a very great impact on them in terms of affecting their livelihood, especially since ours is an educational program. We are trying to make an intervention in the lives of those students by helping them to score good marks so that they can have access to higher education and all. So even schools were shut down. So what was the alternate that the government was proposing was the private schools were running online educational programs when the schools were shut down. So the communities where we are working, most of the children had access to the government schools. So they did not have the facility to have online education because they are coming from a very, very poor background. Even when the school announced for online education, they did not have the technology. For instance, they did not have a smartphone, they did not have a laptop. So that had a very great impact on the educational access of these marginalized communities. So till date, we are actually working on bridging the gap, the educational gap that the students have faced due to the lockdown, because here in India, especially in Tamil Nadu, we had a very huge lockdown, and then they resumed with the online education. So I will explain in my further talk like what kind of intervention that we did through our programs in order to prevent students dropping out, becoming a school dropout, or students dropping out of education. We designed some programs so that it was helpful for them to resume their education, so that when the lockdown was lifted up, they were able to access to the normal government schools that they were attending. So I feel it is very important, especially I'm sure you'll be able to understand Australia is known for working among indigenous communities also. So you can correlate with such situation, like any kind of resources is inaccessible for these communities because of the social structure. It is not only the problem of economic poverty alone. Poverty is an impact of the social structure which is prevalent for 3,000 plus years.
Thank
Can I
you
say?
so much.
Yeah.
Yes, please, Guna.
Yeah.
Add in your thoughts.
Yeah, greetings to every one of the members, indigo members from Mahalir Sakthi and on behalf of women and children. In our country, in our state, places.
Guna, your internet's not very good.
Hello?
Your internet's not very good. We're breaking up. Do you have a phone to access or?
Okay. Is it okay now?
That seems a bit better. Try again.
It comes and goes. Is it okay now?
Yep.
Slum houses are packed. Slum houses are packed and dense. In small area, one big full family lives in that. So government asking to maintain space and social distance. These are not at all possible. Separating and affected people is not at all possible in slum children, in slum families. So infection was very heavy. Also, due to poverty, no money, as Semmalar was saying, every day when they go out only, they can earn money, they can meet their livelihood. But since they're not able to go out, then no money, no food, no buying masks, sanitizers, whatever government announces, nothing. They can big problem even to buy indigenous herbal medicines to protect them from these infections. Since full lockout announces, no work, no wage, hence their livelihood is very much in danger. Also, their family members migrated for work. Then they started coming back to the home. So it creates lots of sufferings in the family. So entire family, no food. This way they suffered a lot, like anything, can't explain it. This is the, in general, impact people face it. But we did a lot of things. First, what we did, we can feel how they can eat. First, food is the main important. Then we thought what money we have, then Indigo Foundation and program money little we had. So we took that money and we bought rice and the sanitation soap and provided that one, and took pictures and shared it with many friends. Then they started giving little donations, little money and rice and everything. So we started giving. Then we contacted government people. We are licensed with government, NGOs, civil society organizations and philanthropists. And we supplied many, we helped many families during this COVID time.
It was an amazing response, Guna, and we really appreciated the photos you shared with us as well.
Yes.
Semmalar, could you, I know you did similar things, but also some different things. Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, actually, like, as Guna aunty mentioned, like, we wanted to really address the need in the sense, like, some of the basic needs were met through the support of Indigo. Like, we provided dry ration to all the families where our students are attending our village education center as well as the 10th coaching center, and also for our tutors. So this was sufficient for them to handle their life for at least a month. So which include soap and basic things like rice and other stuff. So which was very helpful. And this was distributed through the help of the local volunteers that we had during the first wave of lockdown itself. So we had all the precautions in terms of wearing masks, gloves and everything. And then we were able to distribute it. We went to separate every other village and we did that. Apart from this dry ration and then attending their livelihood needs and basic food needs, we also thought like how we could really be cautious about students' education also, because lockdown there for many months. So we equipped our VEC tutors in terms of having access to mobile phones, enabling them to have internet facility. And then we did some sort of a capacity building for our tutors to handle such classes. So one advantage of our centers is it's a neighborhood center, which means our children, our students, beneficiary children can really walk to the nearby VEC center because it is there in every other respective village. So even in a lockdown situation, our VEC tutors could go meet the students in their respective homes, and then they were able to provide some notes for that, so that like they cannot have a wide educational gap. And they were also doing follow-up with some of the state government program where through television they were telecasting some educational program. So our VEC tutors were doing follow-up of the same, so that students or children doesn't drop out of the school. That was the primary motive that we had. And there was large impact on that because when we were equipping tutors, we also gave some insightful workshops in the virtual mode where they can learn science from whatever things which are available in their home. They were able to learn mathematics in a very, very playway method. So when the tutors are equipped, they were able to help the students also to do things. Why I'm insisting about this educational gap is these communities, if you see parents, parents are also not educated. So most of the VEC students, children who are attending our centers are first generation. So since there is parents are not educated, educated, there is very, very less importance or significance which is being discussed in their family about education. So that is the reason we were focusing much on these educational aspects. In a very, very peripheral level, we were helped with this dry ration. And then we also provided them with masks, sanitizers and other things when they go out so that they can protect themselves. So this was the intervention that we could do during the lockdown time.
Thank you so much, Semmalar. And I mean, India had some of the longest school lockdowns in the world. How are you, and Guna too, now you're back, how are you, do you think your activities have helped to keep the kids at school? What are you seeing in terms of, how bad has the impact been?
I'm sure it has impacted very badly. Like even now, students are finding very hard to manage with mathematics, remembering the concepts and all. As you know, these communities, the only educational access point was their school. After we started these centers, at least they had some sort of a space for them to get educated. Maybe I'm sure Laila, Susan have visited our communities. So they live in a very, very small place. Even for them to do their homework or to complete their assignments at home is a very, very challenging thing. And the parents, mostly fathers, will be alcoholics, and there are a lot of distractions at home. That's the reason our centers are very helpful, because 2 to 3 hours they will have some space where they only think about education. And as you all know, for any marginalized communities, education is a very, very powerful tool, because these communities does not own any land or they don't have any other economic resources. So now at present, definitely in terms of education, there is definitely a wide gap. Even the programs that we are designing in our ECs and 10 standard, we are trying to bridge that gap. That is the kind of design that we are getting into it. So even the government of Tamil Nadu is also focusing on it. They are also trying to imitate a similar model of our tuition centers, and they are also running some programs. So that is definitely a great impact in terms of education. And of course, in terms of economic growth and development, you must be having access to the news about our GDP, and also there is definitely a slowdown in terms of our economic progress post-pandemic. And even before that, we had quite a lot of challenge. Even before the pandemic, our GDP was in negative. And now post-pandemic is added to it, especially since we are working with the marginalized communities. Definitely, it is also having an impact in terms of unemployment. And these communities, these parents are also facing such challenge. So it's a dual challenge in terms of education as well as in the livelihood.
Thank you so much, Semmalar. I was reading today how the World Bank is saying that the biggest increase in the number of absolute poor has actually come from India. Guna, what would you add, and particularly in terms of your focus on women? We've heard a lot about you're on mute, Guna. Guna, you're on mute. Sorry, you're still on mute. Jackie?
Fine.
Oh, yep. Now that works. Yeah.
In adding point with Semmalar, Mahalir Sakthi, as Semmalar was pointed out very well, children's education is very much became very low. It's a low standard. So we started Mahalir Sakthi. We started study material, some language, Tamil, English, general knowledge, science, like that. We ourselves prepared basic things and started supplying. It has been started from COVID time. Still it continues. I used to forward that thing to Susan also. Then it's being used by the students and they are developing it. Even PEAB and SASI children and Mahalir Sakthi children, all children are studying and they are getting benefited. So besides, we used to conduct women meeting and awareness and government programs to protect themselves and how they can face these challenges during COVID time. And Mahalir Sakthi is doing that, concentrating on that, and helpful to the women and the community, even health aspect too.
Yeah, you've had quite a few meetings recently with the women's groups and Family Planning India. What have you been doing with those?
Family Planning India, that is FPI is Family Planning Association of India. It's a health organization, government run that organization. We join hands with Family Planning Association of India and conduct medical health lectures, medical camps, and if the preventive in the medicines, and they provide, we create space for them to reach to the community very easily. We join hands with the government and we are doing that work.
And one of the family planning people, she is a Mahalir Sakthi graduate, right?
Yeah, we are. Mahalir Sakthi is very reputed organization, institution in the eyes of a government.
But one
area.
of the
So
staff
whatever
I met,
program they
one of the people who works for Family Planning India, didn't she come through work and education with Mahalir Sakthi?
regarding health aspects they work, not educational thing. Health, medical lectures, and medical camps. Government, if whenever announces any schemes and programs through Mahalir Sakthi, they conduct this program, fulfill that, they achieve that one.
Yeah. When I was there, I met one of the family planning staff who had been, she'd worked with Mahalir Sakthi, been educated with Mahalir Sakthi, and then gone on to this wonderful job with family planning, which was just such a testament to the great work of Mahalir Sakthi. Guna, Semmalar, I was going to say that Guna mentioned SASI. Perhaps you could explain both their role and what they do as well outside of facilitating the PEAB and Mahalir Sakthi projects.
Okay, so actually, like I mean, it's a kind of legal arrangement that we have done with SASI. That's what Susan is mentioning. Like we are also getting a lot of support from the organization through which we are. I mean, here the non-governmental organization, they have to be a registered body. And then as Mahalir Sakthi is a registered body, again, we need to have a Foreign Contribution Regulation Act where we need to apply, and then we have to get approval from the government to receive donations. So SASI is one organization, Social Awareness Society for Youth, is helping us to channelize those funds so that these helps get into the community. So recently, very recently, SASI also organized 2-3 events where we were able to take part in it. One is organizational developmental program that they did. And then our team representatives from the Madirandagam, they were able to take part, and they were also able to visualize like how we can really rework in the present political context. That was also one of the agenda that we were discussing, because a decade before, 10 years before, the pattern of work that non-governmental organization was doing here is totally changing in the recent political climate also. So there is a whole lot of difficulties that especially people who are working on the rights perspective are facing. So those points were discussed with the organization development. Apart from it, also they have created a lot of systems in terms of child protection and gender policy and all sorts of things. So our staff members were also oriented on such issues. So after there was a change in terms of leadership with the SASI, Social Awareness Society for Youth. Now after Ramesh Nathan coming back here to Tamil Nadu, it has been a great support I'm sure for Mahalir Sakthi also. From Madirandagam point of view, PEAB, we are getting a lot of support, and there are monitoring, and there is also some sort of visits. There is a lot of exchange in terms of knowledge sharing also, which has been very helpful for us. So this kind of arrangement where SASI is also helping in terms of channelizing the funding is also very helpful for these marginalized communities, children to have access to education. So
wonderful, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add to ask Guna, I know SASI has also done a lot of work. They do their own work around human rights monitoring and reporting, and Guna's recent, our recent emails and conversations Sorry, I've lost Guna in the.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Sorry,
yeah.
I lost you with the.
I'm here.
I know that Mahalir Sakthi and yourself and your husband Vincent, you've been getting even more active in these human rights aspects. And I was wondering if you would share us both a bit about the reasons for that and what you've been doing.
You're asking about
the human rights work with SASI. Yeah, why you've been doing more human rights work with SASI.
SASI is one of the, from the beginning, we get the help of SASI because as Mahalir Sakthi doesn't have FCR as Semmalar was pointing out, then we cannot get foreign funds directly. So SASI helps us. Though we functions individually, legally we are attached to SASI. It's a SASI program like that. We are functioning.
Yes, but also they do really great work around human rights.
Yes.
And from your last messages to me, I thought maybe Semmalar could help us here. Yeah, thank you, Semmalar.
So I mean, there was a little bit of stuck, so I couldn't really comprehend the question. Now I got it. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes. As Susan was pointing out, SASI has experience of 20-25 years working in the field of Dalit rights. That is, Dalit is a political term, they work among the untouchables. So especially their intervention is capacitating the untouchable communities in order to legally get support, because we have a very proper constitution which give protection for the untouchable communities. Constitutionally, we call them as scheduled caste. So we have a SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act, which is very powerful act, which can be a very helpful tool for Dalits to defend themselves legally. So SASI is one organization which is giving training to a lot of communities, especially choosing women and especially Dalit men and women and youth and all. So that when there is atrocity which is happening against them, they themselves can get into a legal battle. When it something like an issue of untouchability or exclusion or a gang rape or molestation or even exclusion in schools, there are patterns of discrimination. Now there is also honor killing which is happening, where untouchable community, a girl or a boy, is not supposed to get married somebody from some other clan. If at all they want to choose their life partner from some other community, so the parents themselves will set some hooligans and then they kill their own children. So the intensity of the problem of caste is so much in India and especially in Tamil Nadu also. So even the National Crime Records Bureau, which is a national data which provides, the government of India provides, the rate of crimes against these communities, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, Adivasis communities, especially women, have increased over a period of time, and it has increased during the COVID time also. Even the very recent statistics, 2022 data says the crimes against these communities have increased. So the intervention of SASI is really helpful in terms of defending the rights of the marginalized, especially Dalits, and they have been organizing public hearings also, so that larger communities is getting sensitized that these things are happening, and in turn it is also giving pressure to the government to act. Ultimately, though we have a legal act, it is the responsibility of the state. It is the responsibility of the state government as well as the central government to respond and protect the rights of these marginalized communities. So in that sense, SASI is doing intervention in terms of protecting and also preventing the atrocities against Dalits. Susan, you're
sorry,
on mute.
I was muted. that context of the increasing atrocities, do you think it's almost totally attributable to the Modi government and the rise of Hindu nationalism, or are there other factors as well?
Of course, yes. I also get a sense globally there is a kind of hate politics and for the sake of polarization and other stuff. And this is a very right-wing government, and for the second tenure they have won. So the kind of work that in Madurai PEAB is doing, what Sasi is doing, and what Mahalir Sakthi is also doing, is we are trying to build a very, very positive communities where we wanted to really tackle the idea of hate, which is being promoted. But especially these governments which are trying to do this are actually reversing the kind of work that we are doing. That's what I feel, because they get huge funding. Like this government is being supported by right-wing groups all across the globe. You must have heard about Vishwa Hindu Parishad, which works all across the globe, and they are globally supporting financially also. So since they have a lot of funding, they operate in different identities actually. So the government is Bharatiya Janata Party, but they have some additional other groups which support this idea of hatred against Dalits, hatred against Muslims, and then very systematically they are into violence also. So directly you may not be able to equate with the government, but they are subgroups which are operating, and they are violent also. It's not just a group which is just speaking in one hall and then spreading hate and all. So this is having a very large impact on the lives of Muslims and also Dalits. So even to polarize the vote banks, they are trying to infiltrate this idea of hate in ordinary people also. So you will be very surprised, even in social media, if you could just Google some of the pages in Twitter or in Facebook or Insta page. So they are operating very openly, like Modi army or whatever. And then they are trying to mobilize the educated communities also to infiltrate this idea of hate. So of late, after they came for the second time, it has been very, very, we don't have a sense of belongingness that we belong to this country. There is so much of hate everywhere. And the data also shows that people are moving out of the country, that they are not able to survive here. One is poverty. And then just because they wanted to hide this fact that they are not able to perform well in terms of developing the economic, achieving the economic development, they wanted to create issues like, no, you are not supposed to eat beef, and predominantly Muslims and marginalized communities are consuming beef. So they wanted to brand and stigmatize, and then they are creating hate in terms of like, you cannot wear hijab. So they wanted to divert the whole thing just to hide the fact that they are not able to perform well in their economic side, the negative GDP and other stuff. They wanted to create politics from this side. So it has been a very, very dark age for us actually, especially for the human rights defenders as well as people working for the marginalized communities. When it comes to NGO also, they are bringing an amendment act in the foreign contribution regulation just because to stop the funding for these activities. So they don't want these marginalized communities to organize themselves. So they wanted to cut the funding. So it is really a dark age that we are living.
And for Guna, what have been the main concerns for you?
Yeah, Semmalar explained very well the wider range she has explained. But the focus on the slum area, I could say the communal forces are very openly, as Semmalar said, very openly they are coming out, and it is being increasing. That matter is increasing. Also dividing people by caste and religion. Unrest and conflicts emerges everywhere, even in remote areas, the slum areas and remote areas. Then harmonious life is in danger. It's not. People are not in friendly way moving it. The slum areas, the younger ones getting divided. Earlier, they were together. As she said, we worked long years, and we gathered people and caste free, religion free. That community we developed. But now again, it's breaking. Unnecessary quarrels increasing, and youths are being misused for many factors. For political and for riots and this type of thing, the young ones are being used and their education is spoiled. And next door neighborhood enmity is increasing day by day. The neighborhood relationship they were living together, now it's being a question one. Especially Christian churches and worshipping places are being targeted, and the Muslim community is really very much targeted. And violence and putting false cases on Muslims is being increased, and really very openly they are attacking Muslim community. That's being increased. And Hindutva forces getting support of government and government officials, even legal. Legal one is the one common one for all, but that also they are being supported by the BJP government, and they're spoiling it. Then BJP government, they have the concept of one nation, one religion, one scripture, and one culture. Surely this will affect minorities in long run and divide people. So unrest is so totally it's increasing, and peace is a question.
Thank you so much. It's a very sad and depressing picture you're painting. If one more question from me before I'd like to open it up to the audience, and you can either put questions in the chat or after this last questions, I'm really happy for people just to unmute themselves or pop your hand up and ask a question. But for both Guna and Semmalar, in this context, what for each of your organizations are your priorities for the next 6 months, for the next year? Guna, did you want to start?
Yeah. See, I should explain the key activities of Mahalir Sakthi, present one. So ours is only coaching, education. Education is the main one. Coaching children for their academic education and imparting vocational education for self-employment and job opportunities. Then enriching English coaching, general knowledge, computer basics learning, and dropped out for girls, tailoring, typing, etc. Then social awareness programs through lectures, workshops, and speeches towards empowerment and personality development through youth meeting and women meeting. We are organizing that one. Then specializing in cultural and skill performances, developing physical activities through games and martial arts. We are doing that one, encouraging the children. Organizing health lectures and medical camps and support of their medical assistants, helping to reach out medical assistance to all people, younger one and families, women and children. Through women meetings, developing women empowerment. Besides dropout children, the young women, the empowerment, we are doing a program for that. Organizing domestic workers and helping them to seek suitable jobs. Then legal assistance to the families, needy families and the individuals. Then obtaining admissions in schools, colleges, paramedicals, technical institutions. We are doing that one. Then raising small funds for the students to pay school fees, college fees, and buy uniforms, books, and stationaries. Then helping the reach of government benefits, programs, schemes to the families and individuals. So far, we are concentrating on these areas. The next coming years also, we need to strengthen this work. Besides human rights meetings, as Semmalar was pointing out, our work need to reunite again the younger ones and women and families. Because we need to safeguard from the BJP's all this splitting and this thing. So we need to work on that human rights education, motivational, and that type of education we need to give. So we need to plan for that.
That's
more
great.
meetings.
Yeah, that's great, Guna. And you can just see from what Guna said, the extraordinary diversity and reach of Mahalir Sakti's work in the community. It always, you know, even though I've been working with them for a while, I'm always in awe to be reminded of the diversity of the work they do. Semmalar, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, definitely, like the kind of support that we are getting, and then the centers that we are running is having large impact in the communities in terms of preventing these marginalized children from dropping out from the formal education. And then 1 or 2 examples that I also updated with Susan is like, since we've been running these centers for 10+ years, some of the students were beneficiaries of our village education centers are now working as tutors and volunteering for our program. which means they have achieved to the level of higher education and then they got into university education. They wanted to really pay back to the community that where they got benefited from. So definitely it is having a very, very positive impact in the community. And we also have a lot of community connect. The people who are working in the community are very, very much connected to the community, so that we are not isolated. The programs are not isolated. We are having our centers in the community. So that's a very, very positive impact. Some of the things that I have to highlight really is we are now actually moved to a bigger space. When Susan came here, we had a very small office. So we are just making use of the space actually. Now, even we were having tuition centers only for 10th standard and for small children. Now we are actually focusing even for 11th standard and 12th standard students. So they are using the space. Our own tutors are supporting them in terms of career guidance and also helping them with some of the tough subjects that they are handling. And we have computers with internet facilities also. So some of these, the positive side of the pandemic is students have started accustomed to the culture of online education. So some of the videos and internet tools are also being used in the office space. So that is one positive thing over a period of time that we have done. We are also helping our students to build their life skills as well as be socially conscious. So that is the specific significant part of our programs. We are not only focusing only on education, especially addressing the gender part. So one example that I wanted to give is we conducted a 3-day self-defense art training exclusively for our adolescent girl students. So much of teasing, and then even in schools. So they face a lot of challenges, especially girl children. Access to education is been a big challenge just because there is so much of patriarchy and then the violence against girl children. So we are focusing on such areas so that our children are courageous. They can handle the world by themselves. Even for Women's Day, we wanted to focus on adolescent girl children health program. So our programs are designed in a way so that we also deal with the larger problem of patriarchy and gender discrimination. So that is the specific thing, and we really feel proud about our project. It is not only focusing on formal education. We also teach them about the importance of constitution. We teach them about leaders so that they can pick up and then they can get motivated. So education is not only formal education. We wanted to educate at the multiple level. So looking into the political context, we have some discussion with our children, like what is happening around, how we have to really tackle. So in terms of equipping them legally also, I feel in future, we have to really politicize our communities. So it is very important that our youth in the community and our children should know what is happening and how they can really defend themselves, not becoming victims of this larger hate program that the government is doing. So.
Well, that's wonderful, Semmalar. And again, so inspiring. And I think for me, the work they do in a community that's really quite remote, that just adds so much to the difficulty of the work, is what I am always inspired by with the PEAB case. I've been a bit of a typical academic here and lost track of time with my joy of listening to Semmalar and Guna. So we are already a little bit over time, but I've got at least one question here. And if there are any questions, if you need to go, we understand that. But if you had any questions, we can stay on for another question. I've got one here. I might put that one to you first of all, Semmalar, which was from Stav, who's on Gadigal land. He says, you mentioned the struggles with livelihoods and negative growth. Can you mention something about how the communities are now surviving?
And now actually the lockdowns are being lifted up and situations are becoming very, very normal here. And with regard to pandemic, they had challenges, but I remember I was quoting some more thing there is quite a lot of challenges in terms of access to resources for these marginalized communities. Even Mahalir Sakthi is working as well as PEAB is working. So it has been a challenge for years together. So how they are actually trying to survive economically at present is the same daily wage work that they are going. So if you, as you know, India has agriculture economy, where Mahalir Sakthi is working is like a little bit of urban slum kind of situation. There also they go daily wage work, but sometimes they go migrate also. Here, sometimes women are dependent. I mean, they stay locally because they have to take care of the families. So they go for the daily wage work in the agriculture sector, but the wages that they get is very, very less actually. There is also a dimension of gender towards this. Men get like a little bit of higher wages. For the same number of hours of work, women get very less paid. So that is the pattern of work that they do. But predominantly of late, because we have a very, very negative economic growth because of the policy decisions that these government have taken. So the government is not at all focusing on the poor population or marginalized communities. Whole lots of people are migrating to other nearby cities for their work. So predominantly they would go for some plumbing work or painting work, such kind of semi-skilled work that the men usually go for migration. And if you look into the statistics also, the level of migration, internal migration is also increasing. So that is how these marginalized communities are facing this challenge. And then for survival, they have to get some job. So, and as you know, agriculture is a seasonal work only they get. Some seasons, harvest season, they get work. Other season, they don't get work. So we have, the government also have this public distribution system where they get dry ration like rice and other stuff with a very minimal level. So they get it at a very subsidized rate. So people also survive getting from the ration shops. We call it as public distribution system. So when people have to survive, they survive with this dry ration at a subsidized rate. They get it from those centers.
Thank you so much. Guna, would you add anything in Madurai about livelihoods, what you're seeing there?
Yeah, the same, this PDS public distribution system people are getting, and it's being used in the slum areas. Mostly women are suffering like anything. The men almost alcohol addiction and drugs. So it affects the women community very badly. Mostly men, they do not go for work. Even if they go for work also, they earn very little money and uses this for drinking alcohol and on drug matters. And they bring so much sufferings to the families only. The women, the entire family holds on the shoulders of women only. So every day the women should go for any work, domestic work or mason work or cleaning work or garbage clean work, any work they should go. They earn money, then only she can feed the children. The sufferings are all sufferings, family sufferings, shoulder on women only. So we need to think of the women.
Yes, absolutely. And Mahalir Sakthi does absolutely that. Look, we have run out of time. There's so many questions that I have coming out of this conversation and
Yes.
thoughts. But Lila, will I hand back over to you to say our thank yous and goodbyes? You're on mute. Sorry. You're still on mute, Lila.
No, I'm coming. First of all, thanks go to Guna and Semmalar. I think, as I said at the beginning, it's a sort of privilege to have you here in this conversation with us, and being able to hear, for all of us to be able to hear more directly about the partnerships and also the context and the political situation in India. And you've done an excellent job in helping us to learn more about that, no matter what our starting point is. What we've had in the participants, we didn't have time to introduce everyone, but I want you to know that we have a really good cross-section of the Indigo family here online this evening. We have supporters, people who support us financially and in kind, and support the work that you're doing on the ground. We have volunteers who are in a range of roles. Firstly, the partnership coordinators, as with Susan. We have our Afghanistan partnership coordinator, I'm going to miss someone here, our partnership coordinator for Bougainville, our partnership coordinator for East Timor, and I think some of the names have gone off the screen. So we've had a good representation of people who hold these relationships with other partners. We've got our staff team, and we've got most of our board online. So for you to understand that you're reaching a good cross-section of Indigo here, and to thank all of those people for being part of the conversation. Finally, thanks to Susan for leading us and, you know, managing the questions, but also helping to share your knowledge on the context of our partnerships in Tamil Nadu and India. Finally, I want to say just a little bit about the Indigo conversations. I think have become part of our way of kind of doing business, and it's a really lovely way to bring people together here in Australia, but also to connect us with our partners overseas. So look out for more of these, and Guna and Semmalar, you've set a high standard for our future conversations. Thank you so much. And on that note, I'll say goodbye and let you go to your families and to your dinner and everything. Thank you.
And one more big thanks from me to Guna and Semmalar. It's a very stressful thing from on Zoom talking to people in other countries, and they are just amazing. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much. I feel like it's a great opportunity to really meet like who are behind this, and then we are doing something in the field, and we get to know like who are all working there, and the kind of commitment that you have to learn about our communities, like especially the marginalized communities that you're working. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, every one of the Indigo members. And because of your support only, we could able to work and achieve this much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.